Hi there, I'm Hugh Griffiths, and this is the third episode in my short series on Photography 101, photography basics, if you will. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at editing your photographs. You've spent a lot of time and effort getting the picture right in the first place, but it's not quite right, and you need to make some changes to it. Editing, to me, is one of the essential things you have to do to improve your photographs, to bring them from a good photograph up to a great photograph. So we'll move straight into the program, the PowerPoint. And here we go. First of all, I've got a quote from my favorite source of quotes, Ansel Adams. He seemed to say things all the time that were really useful, quotable. You don't take a photograph, you make it, he said. And in his case, he was talking partly about the way he set it up in the first place. He was a landscape photographer in many of the national parks, Yosemite particularly in the United States. So the setup time, what time he was there, the place he was standing and so forth, he took time to organize that. But he also, when he was developing the picture, when he was printing it, he would make changes to it, and putting more development here and making it brighter there, darker there. You make it. And editing is not something that's new. It's not a digital only thing. It's something that's been around ever since photography started. But a question that you might ask is why bother? The thing is that editing takes time. You go on a holiday and you may take, I don't know, 1,000 photographs or so. It takes time to go through them, doesn't it? Why should I bother editing them? And the answer is because they're not yet perfect. They may be okay, but you think there's some that could benefit from a bit of change. You should have had 3 trees in them. Sure, I've got 7, I've got 6. I want to make my dad stick out. I want to get rid of that dustbin that's there in the corner. It's just annoying. It doesn't help the picture. The picture's too dark or too bright. Not what I wanted. It's not how it looked. What's come out of the camera doesn't reflect the way I saw it in the first place. The sky is a different colour. Leading lines, they're there, but they're in the middle. They're not not highlighted in the frame. I can't see the story that I thought was there in the picture. How can I emphasise the elements of the scene to make my story clear? I want it to look strange. And here's a couple of examples of that. Because one reason also for editing is because you just want to play with the picture. You think, what can I make out of it? Can I do something different? This photograph I took, it's lovely reflections on water with reeds at the back. And I edited it, played with it. Now, you might want to choose that one over this. I personally would choose this because I think it's impressionist. I love impressionist art. And that's the result of just playing with some of the tools that I've got in the editing programs that I use. Again, here is the sea breaking, heavy seas breaking over a rock just off Lansing on the south coast. And it's a nice picture, actually. It's quite a grand picture. You get the feeling of movement and power of the waves, but it is a bit bland. So I played with it, played with the colours. I increased all the saturation of the colours and the vibrance of them. Those colours are there in the original. I just multiplied them up, multiplied the power of them up. I got this rather science fiction-like image of a sea on a foreign planet. May not be the outcome you want. Fine, you can just throw it away. But the point is, by playing, you learn about the tools in your editor. It doesn't hurt to play. It allows you to make a masterpiece out of a good photo. Editing can do that. Editors might cost money, but there are a number of free editors around for both the PC, for Windows and Macs. Often they're a bit complicated to use, or they have quite limited functionality. But if you spend a bit of money, you can spend anything from £50 up to 500, I think. Adobe Photoshop Elements is £85 on Amazon, and that's the one I would always recommend. It's really excellent. It's like it's a Photoshop Lite program, but Lite is the wrong word. It's got a load of the facilities that full Photoshop does, but makes them much more accessible and usable. Very good. Free editors available for your smartphone and your tablets, and especially I like Photoshop Express from Adobe. You can tell I use Adobe a lot. Adobe Lightroom and full Photoshop, they're available. You can effectively rent them for about £11 a month, which includes all the iPhone and Android versions as well. So some examples of what I've done in editing that made me realize like editing really is important. So here's a picture of I think it's a gerberas. I've brightened it, I've cropped it a bit. I wanted to emphasize that flower against the flowers in the background and against the dark surround. I think I have there. It might benefit from a bit more brightness, not sure. But that's the picture I wanted. The picture that came out of the camera was on the left and wasn't really usable. Similarly, this one's too dark. This is what I edited. So I did a bit of cropping. But now it's brighter. It's brighter than the original one. You can see the reeds, you can see the sky better. The colours are more realistic. The water is blue, reflecting the blue sky above. My grandson playing on a tree stump in a park. It's okay. But this is a lot better. Square format, so I cropped it to that. So it forces you to look at him. He's brighter. It's taken away the dullness of that original picture and sharpened up the elements of the picture. That's a picture that I could hang up and show to people on the right. On the left I might, but it's not an easy one to look at. Another one. These are all dark pictures, aren't they? Sometimes pictures overlight and you want to darken them more. I've just happened to have chosen a number that are dark. It's a picture of some succulents. And here's what I did to it. I cropped it a lot. I chose to bring out the lighting on this particular one, which is in the center of the left, leaving the rest of it dark and hazy. So it's as if we've got this one succulent amongst a sort of kaleidoscope of other bits of leaves and so forth from the rest. I think it's quite striking. This is a picture where it wasn't too dark. It's a little bit dark, not much. It's a reed in beds on a pond or a lake. And I changed it to this. I thought it could benefit from having, first of all, being square format, but also so I get rid of some of the extra meaningless space on the right. I changed it to black and white. It made quite a difference. Because actually there's not much colour there in the first place, but there's a bit. And I brought out the sharpness of the leaves, or whatever you call them, on this reed. And suddenly that's a much more dramatic picture. That's something you look at twice to see it. I'm going to talk through a small number of editing techniques: cropping, auto or manual toning, leveling and perspective, and healing and toning. There's a lot of other techniques you can use and lots of other tools that these editors provide. I might mention them, but these are the ones I think are most important. Cropping. In fact, cropping, I think, is the most important tool of all. You can make huge changes to the impact of a photograph by cropping in on what you want to emphasize. So here's a photograph where I took a picture of these two gentlemen up on the sea berm, chatting to each other. But it's quite striking. It's got the cloud at the same level as them and the early morning sky. And this is what I did. I cropped it to get rid of all the stuff on the right. That was not adding anything to the picture. It was the people and the clouds that I wanted. So here's the picture. That's what I wanted, and that's what I want you to look at. You look at the people much more than you look at the plant life there. Another one, two otters at a Wetland Centre in Barnes. I do go there quite a lot. They're very cute. They're remarkably tiny. I didn't realise how small otters were, but they are. And the two of them sitting there chatting to each other, playing with the wood or with the leaves and twigs and stuff all around. But look at this picture, they're a bit hidden. They don't seem to be so clear there. So I cropped it in on them. And now they've become much more emphatic in the picture, that they're there, and that's what you know you're looking at. They don't get lost amongst all the other bits and pieces of log and whatever around. I'm not sure that I shouldn't have got rid of that bit of wood sticking up on the left. I could have photoshopped that out, but I didn't, and maybe I should have done. Okay, let's look at tone. What is tone? It's the colours, it's the sharpness, it's the brightness, it's the noise, it's the colour temperature, the colour balance. And here's a photograph. In fact, it was about 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning. The south coast, it's a fishing boat out at sea. There's a beautiful coloured sky and clouds above the boat. You can't see them. And actually, what you can also see is that sea is at an angle. It seems to be leaning to the right. So, I did do the levelling, we'll talk about that again. But I brightened it up. I got rid of the shadows and the darkness in the picture, and suddenly this comes out. The sun on the water was too bright, so I reduced the highlight amount in the picture. So it made that a little bit darker, not so bright and distracting. You can see the clouds, you can see the lovely early morning colours and the light on the sky, and you can see the colours above the clouds. And the fishing boat is clearly the centre of attention. Another one taken early in the morning. You can see the sun beginning to rise up here. Little dot, there it is, it's the sun. But I didn't like it again, the picture isn't level. Oops. So I leveled it and I brightened it. I brightened up the colours at the back, a bit more vibrance to them, made them a bit more in your face. I didn't the saturation I could have done, which just brings out more depth of the colour. I made it a brighter picture in total, so the clouds are clear and the sky isn't as dark as it was. I had to lighten the sky a bit. Now you can see the waves, you can see the sun, you can see what there is in the picture. You can see the beautiful colours. That's what I wanted you to look at. Tone controls when I use this Lightroom, here's some examples of them. You can change the colour temperature, which is the white balance, daylight or whatever. You can change the tint, the overall tint, like sepia in the old days, sepia photographs. Exposure, which is the overall brightness of the picture, the contrast. Edges, are they harder than you want them to be, in which case you can reduce the contrast, or not as hard, you can increase the contrast. Highlights, is it too bright in places? Is it completely blown out highlights? The shadows, is it too dark? Get rid of the shadows. So what that is, if you've got a dark wall, you might be able to get some of the detail in that wall by moving the shadows slider to the right. The white, too much black. Texture, clarity, dehaze, they're all tools that make things, the picture sharp. Clarity and texture certainly are tools that make the picture sharper at particular colours. The vibrance, saturation, affect the colour, light, temperature and tint. And vibrance just makes it more vibrant. Saturation, you can go completely to the left and get rid of all the colours of a black and white picture. We go to the right and just add more and more brightness into the colours. You can sharpen or reduce luminance. Luminance is noise. Colour luminance is a different sort of noise, which is noise again. And here on this part of the screen, you can change the amount of noise that there is in the picture. So there's lots of tools to help you to make it look a better picture. There's also an auto tool very often. which I use as a starting point for my editing. Leveling. Talked a little bit about this already, of course. So here's a picture I took of the gatehouse at a National Trust place in Cornwall, and Hydrock. And I assure you, either I was not drunk, and nor was the building. This is what it should be like. I've brightened it up a lot so you can see it, but it's also now level. That's what it was. That's what I wanted to show. And that makes sense now. The building looks sensible, whereas here, it just doesn't feel right, does it? It's going to fall over. It's a leaning tower of Pisa. In this one, the sea is like it's falling out of the left-hand side of the picture. You can imagine it pouring out there as it rolls down the picture. That wasn't, and the problem with this picture is that I wanted you to look at the boat. I want you to see the lovely colours in the boat. Actually, because the sea is at an angle, inevitably your eyes go to that and think, that's what you're going to see. I want you to focus on the boat. Now, making the sea level, suddenly the boat becomes much more important because the sea isn't special. There's nothing wrong with it. It's there's not much detail in there. And the boat is what you notice. That's what I want you to do. So leveling is really important. It's a real irritant for me and for many people to see a photograph that's clearly not level. Perspective, looking up, talking onto buildings and seeing a false perspective. You know, how the buildings seem to lean in on each other. And here's a photograph I took in Canary Wharf on the underground there. The elevators going up to escalators going up to the top. And it needed a lot of change, this picture. So it needed straightening for a start, but also the perspective. You can see the walls leaning into each other. Now that's better. That's what it really was. That's what my eye interpreted it as. The brain and eye worked together to create this picture. The camera just saw what was there in front of it. There was no interpretation done on it. I have done some interpretation now on my editing program to change the perspective to what my eye saw. Similarly here, this is at Waterloo on the Waterloo City Line station. And it's not all that bad actually, but you can see the arch in the distance is leaning over, the walls and ceiling don't feel to be at right angles to each other, whereas obviously they really are. So, ooh, big change. The wall on the left is much more vertical, and you can see it. The fence here in front of you, and think everything's straight and parallel. It feels more like it was in reality. Perspective changes can be quite impressive. But sometimes you don't want to do them. Sometimes the perspective effect is what you're after. So here's a photograph I took at Canary Wharf, just by the Jubilee Line station. And it's of the tower blocks right above the station entrance. And actually, I rather like that effect. I think it's quite a grand effect to see the sky reflected in the sides of the building, see the buildings leaning into each other. It's not what was really happening. You might call this a bit weird, but actually it's quite a nice picture. Healing and cloning, last topic. This is what's often called photoshopping, when you take things out, put things back. And here's an example of one which I did some cloning on, where on the left of this picture, I've got a little, left of the boat rather, I've got a little bit of fence and some stuff, and then some more fence and a building. On the right, I've got vegetation. What I did was to crop it, invert it to black and white, but I think probably more importantly, I took that little area to the left of the boat, here, and I got rid of it. I cloned in some of this. I copied some of that into here. So that looks much more natural. it looks like the boat is on its own. Not exactly what was there, that's for sure. And I'm actually taking stuff away from reality. But this is the picture that I wanted you to see. I want to show to people this one. Similarly with this, where I took a photograph on a local golf course with my dog, sun shining through a tree, and these wretched houses in the distance. They were really there, but I thought they were a bit of an unfortunate thing in the photograph. So I played a game with healing and cloning and got rid of them. Now, they were there, but the new stuff I put in, which is copying from other parts of the picture and using the clever program stuff that Photoshop provides for healing, I've got rid of them. They're not a distraction anymore. What you've got is a tree in a park in the country. That's what I wanted you to see. Healing and cloning can be done really badly. You can really make things obviously changed. So it's not a trivial thing to just do. You do have to think about it, and you might have several tries, as I did on this picture, to make it look more effective, more real. There's a whole lot more things you can do in editing. You can select areas of the image, which, for example, a person, and you can just edit on them or on everything except them. With levels, they call levels and curves. Levels, you can change where the black and white emphases are. And curves can make pictures more snappy. Got a couple of links there to show you what they are. And layers. Layers, you can have an image made up of more than one layer of change. Quite a complex thing to think about. I try not to, but I do use it a lot, where I can put a layer over something else. And it's like it's a layer that takes colour or adds colour, makes it brighter, whatever, on top of the original photograph. Editing apps, loads of them. For smartphones and tablets, there's lots of them. A lot of them are free, and some Adobe apps are free. Photoshop Express, Lightroom Mobile, Photoshop Mix, Photoshop Fix, they're all free. And they've got premium features available if you have an Adobe Creative Cloud. That's the £11 a month subscription. Visco, basic features are free. Snapseed, Darkroom, Instagram, free editors. There's a lot more. There's no way there's anything like a comprehensive list. So just download some and try. Have a Google search and try them. See which ones help you the most and give you the most fun. Similarly with the computer, there's not so many free ones, but there's lots of them. And they almost all work on both PCs and Mac. So you've got the Adobe ones, you've got Elements, which are Adobe Photoshop Elements I mentioned earlier, which is a sort of light version of Photoshop. Skylum, Luminar, Serif Affinity. There's a lot of different editors. GIMP is a free one, dreadful name. It's not that easy to use. The benefit is that it's free, but it really isn't a straightforward thing to use. DxO Photolab, On1 Photo, Corel Photoshop, Apple Photos, which is obviously only for Macs, is quite good as well. The benefit of a lot of these is that most of them offer a 1 month free trial for you to see if you like them. Just have a go. Play with your photographs. Download a free trial. You don't have to buy it. So be kind to your photographer. The power of editing is in their hands. You can change things in the photograph. You can make that smile into a grimace. You can make that person disappear from the photograph. You can make that building suddenly taller. Editing can do all sorts of things. It's really there to make the picture better, more impactful, to make it more fitting with your creative instinct. And I've said this before, in composition and in the camera controls and in editing, creativity is not the possession of some special talent. It's about the willingness to play. Only John Cleese could say that. It's playing. Just try things. try compositions, try to fiddle with your camera controls. Just try different tools in the editor you've got. You don't have to hurt your photograph or damage it. You can be careful not to do that. But you can play, and I must say I've learned an awful lot of controls in my photographic editors, simply by playing and trying them, seeing what effects they have. So, we've done the 3 key topics. We know a lot about our composition. We know a lot more about how the camera works. We know a lot more how we can edit the picture to cover anything that's not quite perfect when we take the photo. So now let's go out. Let's go and create. Let's not just let it sit in our minds and then vanish. Let's go and do something about it. Let's go and create. You can take photographs outdoors. You can take photographs indoors. Anywhere the camera works. So thank you for listening to me for these 3 episodes. And don't forget, you can replay these whenever you want to, thanks to YouTube. Thank you. And here are my contact details. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at info@creativelight.org.uk. You can also look at my website, from which you can also send emails, at www.creativelight.org.uk. Please have a look at it anyway, see what you think of them. All of the photographs on there have been edited. So, cheerio. Thank you for spending time with me.